Okay, so welcome to your resets. This session is going to be on unlearning. Um, you all know me, so I don't, well, do you know me, Pri? Do I need to introduce myself? Um,
Um, yeah, I've only attended one Q and this was months ago. So yeah.
okay. Well, Tahiirah Habibi, I am the founder of the Hue Society, amongst other business endeavors. But more specifically, I am a multi-dynamic woman. And the reason why I am able to function in the world and run multiple businesses and all these things is because I have found a practice that keeps me centered. And if you are in my close circle, you know that I'm very big on meditation, very big on mantras and affirmation. I try to lead with that in all of my spaces of encouragement. And most recently, I felt led to kind of lean more into that side of myself, which is the primary side of myself. A lot of people don't know that. They see my online persona. I'm a wine expert by trade, but my living is all in um, the idea of authenticity and the divinity of what that looks like. And so when you think about authenticity, you think about being yourself. For me, it's really allowing the divine beings of whatever you believe in or don't, but we all have something to contribute. And so being able to do that and have those things kind of flow through you, you have to be in a space of mental clarity and spiritual clarity in order to tap into what we call your genius zone, right? So that flows into all the different facets of your life. And so I decided that January, since this is the beginning of the year, I would host a reset session like I do for my friends. My daughter's been meditating her whole life, so it's a very common thing for me, but I don't think a lot of people know it. So it's kind of like shocking for people sometimes. Um, with that said, I have some things, and I don't know if you have some things, but when I generally do like a meditation, um, there's the same thing with wine. Your olfactory gland gets you into certain spaces, right? And so when I do meditations, I use incense sometimes, or I have like certain candles that I will light because there are things that just your olfactory, your nose, the things that go through your senses, it sets your mind in a certain place. And so if you ever want to concentrate, if you ever want to kind of clear your head, you can use different smells to do that. They'll trigger something that immediately calms your nervous system. For me, it's really important to do this work on the other side, which is again, it's like completely separate from my wine work, but it's so important because right now our nervous system is under attack every day. Every other second, there is something that living in this country is doing to attack your nervous system. And when you don't have a calm nervous system, it's hard to maintain calmness or clarity in a lot of other places in your life. And it doesn't have to be a huge practice. When I started, I dedicated 10 minutes a day to myself before I picked up my phone, before I checked social media, before I checked my email, any of the rest of that stuff. And you can pull those minutes, you can segment those minutes, right? Your first minute, if you open your eyes, you don't open your eyes, is 1 minute of gratefulness, right? Just 1 minute of grateful. I'm grateful I even opened my eyes today, you know, wiggle around. I'm grateful I can move my arms. I'm grateful I can, the little things that we take for granted, whatever it is that you're grateful for. Every day for me is I'm grateful I open my eyes. I'm grateful my daughter is next to me and she's able to breathe and open her eyes and so on and so forth. The next 2 minutes can be just adjusting your body back to the world. What does that look like? When I sit up in my bed, I stretch immediately. Your body's been in a position for however long, stretch in the opposite directions, pulling yourself in and out, all of those kinds of things, putting your feet on the floor, feeling grounded, stretching your feet, doing those, kinds of exercises. You can add music into there, meditation, whatever it is that makes you feel good, and you set your attention for today. Today, I'm really working on myself with not allowing people to get under my skin. So today, I'm not going to, every time somebody gets under my skin, I'm going to count to 10. Like little things that help you to improve yourself for yourself because you're the person who you spend the most time with. And so when, as we start this, I don't know if you have something that would strike some kind of memory or a chord in you that would feel good for you right now, but you are feel free to go and get that. If that's a candle, for me, like I said, I'm going to light an incense. It's a little lemongrass thingy thing that I have here. Um, I also have multiple different kinds of incense that I love and I use for different things. So do that.
I love lemongrass. I'm going to do a little baby powder today. It's very nostalgic for me.
That is.
Yeah, love a baby powder incense. And then I have some cinnamon spice vanilla candle that my little brother got for me over the holidays.
Such warm and loving memories. What did you get, Pri?
That's funny because I'm actually lighting baby powder now. That is funny that we have the same one.
Well, okay, look at alignments. Brandon, are you going to grab something? You want to tell us? Okay, I'll move on. Brandon is still here. He's just on a phone call. The other thing that I have, which is also
So
incredible.
Brandon's in the chat. He did say he was lighting a candle.
Oh, okay. The other thing I have, which is also, very soothing for people as well as like clearing your energy, sage is another thing. I'm not going to burn sage tonight. I'm going to stick with the incense. And also tea. Tea is a wonderful, wonderful way to reset your energy, reset your look at us. What kind do you have?
This was like a hibiscus what was it? Hibiscus rose, something like that.
Come through, ancestors. There we go. Mine's is mint tea, green tea with mint. And I have been on this what is wrong with me? Clove thing. So I've been sipping cloves every night. So I have like about 5 cloves in the bottom that I'm just, enjoying. Um, but this also helps me wind down at night and all the rest. So I know like the tea is an immediate kind of trigger for my body to start to wind down because I have it every night before bed. And so those kinds of things. Um, and as we go through this, I am going to go through a presentation and I have some, questions and stuff like that. And so we can get started with the prompts. And the first prompt is I don't now where is it? Hmm. It's a reflection prompt, you know. Do you guys see the question?
Yes.
Which one are you carrying? So this is going to go into another question. Hold on, sorry. One quick. Okay. Which is the weight? What is one responsibility I'm carrying that isn't mine to solve? And it's not something that you have to answer right now. It's something I want you to kind of think about as we go through this, because we're all carrying something, right? Um, I'm about to tell you something really funny because it is completely off topic, but whenever we think about carrying things, for me, I can sometimes carry a lot of perfection. And so while I'm looking at myself on this screen, this picture looks a little crooked and I am losing it in my head. But it reminds me like it doesn't have to be perfect, right? I'm not performing for anybody. And so that is the first prompt that I want you to think about. What is it that I'm carrying? Now, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through um, some deeper conversation. And I want you to know that you are free to turn your camera off. Um, Hold on, I'm trying to get to my presentation here. You are free to turn your camera off. You are absolutely free to um, not respond to whatever it is, anything that, doesn't feel good for your body or your mind at the time. There is no expectation or obligation on my end for you to participate in any way that you are not prepared for or ready. And so, um, I just wanted to make sure that I told you that. And let me get to my screen. I am not the best with technology. I don't know if y'all figured that out yet, but this is a safe space, right? Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfecto. So from this point, you'll probably just hear my voice because I'm not sure if you can see me in the screen, but as I said, this is the Reset You Deserve. This is a wellness session on unlearning, returning, and reclaiming yourself. And sometimes we don't even know how much of ourselves we give out throughout the day to other people. And this is for this 1 hour, 45 minutes, whatever. This is the one time where you don't have to be the teacher, the employee, the spouse, the mom, um, the partner, the anything else outside of the things you need to be for yourself right now in these moments. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about in an easy way to, well, I won't say easy, a, a way for you to understand unlearning is to first understand the patterns of performance that we all fall into. And we've all had these, I won't call them mistakes. I will say this conditioning in one way or another, right? So the 5 patterns of performance. Um, the first pattern is the over functioning shield, doing more to feel safe, in the shock of being an absorber for everybody else's stress, right? If you know me, that sounds about right. um, and maybe that is something that I immediately identify with, being the absorber for everybody else's stress, being this is a trauma pattern that is a response disguised as leadership, right? A lot of this is a trauma response. And we all have trauma responses, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having trauma. It's identifying your trauma is how you move on and are able to heal from it. And so a lot of us believe that if we are the most prepared, right? If we're perfect, if we work the hardest, if we are the most useful person, then we're bulletproof. Then, we're impenetrable. We can't be hurt. We aren't just doing our jobs. We're able to manage everybody else's emotions to ensure that things stay stable, because the trauma response is the stability, right? You had to take control so that you feel something stable in your life. And all humans want some sense of control in their life. And the cause of that is just chronic exhaustion and the resentment that comes from being You could say the only adult in a room. That's an example. Um, you could say, and it depends on how you're defining adult. If we're defining that by age or by maturity, but you're the person that's responsible. And so one of the ways that my mentor has taught me how to unlearn that is, to wait 10 minutes. When there is a problem and you want to be the hero, right? Because that is the response, to wait 10 minutes or 10 hours or something before offering a solution. Part of that is trusting the other person to figure it out and allowing yourself that space to trust the other person to figure it out and trusting yourself to know that you can make good choices and you don't always have to be the hero, right? And even if things fall apart, sometimes things fall apart so that they can be put back together. And it's necessary. And unlearning this will mean that things might get messy when you stop holding them up. But if you're the pillar, then who's holding you up? Can anybody identify with this or would like to touch on that a little bit?
I overstand you. Um, you know, being my mom's only child, being the first granddaughter, on paper, one of the most accomplished, in my family that, folks look at you like you're the rich auntie, right? In many ways, because you don't have any children yet, or, you're well traveled or have a decent job. So not only just codependent from a financial standpoint, but also, to be able to help everyone else get through emotional and mental situations because I have curated, this emotional stability in my life to, pretty much anything that exhausts me or triggers my nervous system, I have been able to remove and just create a really warm dwelling for myself. And in some cases, folks gravitate towards that energy. And it always takes a lot for me to be able to balance and say I can't really pour into anybody's cup when when mine is either empty or half full. And when you had posed that question, I wrote inside the field and I had answered it. But as far as just weight and feeling like, like my father suffering from addiction, and then I hate to say it, but I'm actually really happy that he recently got incarcerated this past 2 weeks because I'm constantly worried about him and that anxiety,
Yeah.
right? And my wife and I are raising my older brother who goes to college in Jersey. And that is something that does not feel exhausting, being able to be that stable person in his life, because that's what the village is for. But
Yeah.
trying to take on something else, once again, as far as my father's personal decisions, is not something that I'm willing to, uh, like I said, trigger my nervous system by way of his adult decisions and making sure that I'm being emotionally and financially available to bridge the gap for my siblings. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's really insightful and really beautiful that you understand those things about yourself. And I know that probably took a long time to get to that place because I too dealt with a parent who was addiction. My mom had been on drugs my entire life, and so I fully understand you um, in that feeling of responsibility and like also the relief of knowing that they're in one place at this moment. And it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. Anyone else want to share, or shall we move on?
I'll share. Yeah, like when I was really young, like around 5 years old, my parents got divorced. And like it was a rough time for me because like my parents like did not talk at all. And I was kind of like having to be the messenger between both of them. And I don't know, like for years, I guess like that kind of just put me in a mentality where I didn't feel like I was being useful or like a use to myself if I wasn't solving somebody else's problem. Um, and so I kind of had to unlearn that like several like into later early into my adult life. that I can't be there like for everybody. I like had a big problem with I guess trying to like use all of my time to like people please. Taking care of everybody else's responsibilities and it began to just feel like I'm carrying people to the places that I want them to be at instead of just allowing them to come there on their own. And it was just a lot of stress. And I've gotten a lot better at that. I only help out like if I know like it's something that I would need to do or something like that, and I can say like, oh, I trust you to figure that out or whatever. But yeah, it was like growing up was really hard from that aspect because yeah, having two parents that can't speak to each other puts a lot of stress on you.
Yeah, that, that's really hard. And you became an adult really fast, um, without your consent, essentially. But I'm glad that you are making strides to um, move beyond that and understanding yourself a lot better. And, some things are take a really long time to unlearn, and some things you gotta at some point just like, man, fuck this. I'm done. So, as we go along, we'll identify other things. Let me see. Oop, oop, sorry. The next pattern is the perceptive shrink, what I love to call assimilation in a lot of ways. Reading the room, automatically adjusting your volume as a person. And we do this a lot as Black people, or the needs to keep other people comfortable. I feel like one level or another, we're all taught to do this for survival, right? As we enter any room that doesn't look like us. And even if it's only one other person in there that doesn't look like us, it's an automatic thing. We do that. We change our tones, we fix our hair, we don't talk the same in mixed company as we do amongst ourselves. And some of that is protection and vulnerability, and a lot of that is survival. Um, but outside of the whiteness of it, we do that um, to other people too, right? Like when we want to be accepted. And so this is really something that, oops, sorry. Um, a lot of my work is centered around, the authenticity of being yourself no matter what, because it teaches other people how to treat you. And I think that it's just incredibly important for us to reclaim those parts of ourselves, because every time you do this, you give a part of yourself away. You voluntarily handed them, here, you can have this. You don't like my hair? Here you go, cool. I won't do my hair like that for you. You don't like the way I talk? Okay, I'm going to change my tone for you. You're making the other person more important than you are. And a lot of times it's not happening for you. And so, um, this is cultural survival that we turn into habits that we don't even think about. We wear these masks on a regular basis. You become a master at it. Your opinions don't matter anymore. And you are just kind of shape shifting through your life. But the cost of that is, again, like you're losing your original frequency. And eventually you don't know who you are when you're alone, because you spend so many time wearing all these different masks. And there are some people who wear a different mask for every room they have to go into. You think about that, like that's crazy, right? And a big part of, I mean, I think you being here is a part of unlearning that, like being a part of this organization, because we don't play that over here. But aside from that, in other spaces, picking a safe room, right? Like I just said, like the Hue Society is a safe room for that specific thing. Um, where you're able to share your rawness and your needs. And in this particular space, the catalyst happens to be a wide thread. But beyond that, there are other needs that we have that that we should be able to be raw about all the time. And then you stop asking, what do other people need from you for you to feel accepted? And you start figuring out what feels true and authentic and right for you and your soul. And when I first started my wine career, I started at the St. Regis. That was my first job. Probably one of the highest luxury jobs that you can get, especially to be starting out as your first job. And when I tell you they turned me every which way but loose, I didn't recognize myself in the mirror at some point. They wouldn't let me do anything. The way I talked, they train the way you talk, they train the way you dress, they train your hair. You were not allowed to wear braids. You're not allowed to do so anything that creates any kind of authenticity and you get stripped away. And then being black, they completely strip those levels away. And so I felt like I had to participate in that in order to keep my job. I also felt the pressure of kind of being the first and being in this space and to keep this door open. I felt like I had to eat all of this. I had to take this. I had to allow them to completely strip me of anything that I recognized about myself or that made me special in order to keep a community door open or to represent for Black people or any of the rest of that stuff. And a lot of times when we get into these higher positions or whatever, a lot of us feel that way. You're representing the whole race. And so I have been here. I'm not there anymore. I walk in every room as myself all the time. And if you don't like it, guess what? I stopped doing that in 2015 and never turned back. And I've lost a lot for it, right? It doesn't come without a cost. But what I still have is myself. And I'm very happy with myself, right? I love the way I dress. I love, my makeup when I wear it. I love these kinds of things. I would never turn back. And only thing that I've ever wanted is for everybody to feel that kind of freedom. And that's what you strive towards, to free somebody else. And maybe, they're not going to get to a place where they're 100% free because they don't work for themselves. But being able to provide some kind of freedom for somebody else, I feel like that's all of our jobs, to have a space. And sometimes it's as simple as you being free. Your freedom frees somebody else. You let somebody else know, hey, I actually don't have to act like this, or I don't have to be that. A lot of things in the wine industry changed because I started going in rooms with my daughter in my hip and my big earrings on my ear and like, hey, what's up? And I was still the best in the room. And at some point, you can't tell me no because I'm the best. So what we doing here? But now I've trained everybody in this industry to know exactly what they're getting from me. So there's not a person that tries to hire me that does not know exactly what they're getting. There's not a person who asks me to speak, to do something that does not know exactly what they're getting. And that, my friend, is freedom. And it is glorious. And again, I've lost a lot of money because a lot of people look over me too. And I'm good because we're not in alignment. And I'm happy with that. Does anybody else ever felt like experience this pattern that they wanted to talk about?
Go ahead, Andrea.
I have especially at jobs, I felt like I've had to catch myself and not code switch and stuff like that. I feel like in the past I have, and in my most recent working, maybe the last 5, 6 years, I've had to um tell myself before I go into a meeting or any type of room, like I don't need to be what other people think. Um, or I don't need to try to hide the way I speak or the way I am because I feel like sometimes people already have this perception of what they think a Black woman is going to do or sound like. And I have to tell myself that, these people don't know me, even if they're people I work with, these people don't know me. And I have to keep who I am together at all times. And don't, and I also have have in the past had a bad habit of just shrinking because I just never felt, I always felt smaller than other people. And that's something else I've had um to change because like it says, spend so much time being who other people needed. Like, so sometimes I feel like I had to dumb myself down because I didn't want people to not like me or whatever. And I've had to get out of that, and it's just, be who I am. And it just feels better. It feels better, and it feels so much better when somebody doesn't like me for who I am, besides somebody liking me for something, not liking me for something I was trying to be. I'd rather you just not like me for who I am, because I ain't changing. I'm gonna be the same person. So, I'm okay with people not liking whatever it is about me that's actually me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I like you.
Oh, thank you.
I like you too, and we might be cousins. I just saw your last name on
Yeah,
here.
I
I'm like,
know, Franklin.
okay,
Hey,
come through, Miss Franklin.
cousin.
All right, cousin.
Hey, cousin.
Anybody
Yeah,
else want to speak on that one?
yeah, like just obviously coming back in corporate America since the pandemic, and I think that quarantine time, and then just relocating from Jersey to Atlanta during that time, it was just such a spiritual journey for me. And being furloughed, it was the first time in my entire life since I was 12 years old that I had ever been unemployed, including being on Cheney's campus. I have never been without a job. So, and being raised by folks that say, hey, you go get you a 401k, you retire, you get your pension, and whatnot, and not really necessarily ever being down the road of entrepreneurship, but even outside of my wine journey, just being able to have my time be my time. And to your point, start every day with meditation and being able to eat healthy and being able to work out and being able to just be around so much beautiful blackness in which that Black Mecca of Atlanta is able to provide in a way that I've never, grown to experience because we absolutely over integrated being up north from an ownership standpoint. So it was just such a spiritual journey for me that when I did re-enter corporate America, I was way more unapologetic than I ever was prior to. And to your point, like, even my lock journey was during that pandemic. So like wearing my hair how it is that I want to during different meetings and different conferences, being okay with wearing my hoops and not forcing myself to put on studs just because knowing I don't like how I look in stud earrings, knowing that I want that hoop, and something as simple as that and not being comfortable to wear it in the corporate office prior to that time. And then most recently I was in Dallas for work. And to your point, like, it was the first time that I've worked, at least for the company that I have now, that we've had more than two people that were Black in my department. And from a regional standpoint, I don't think we've ever had more than three throughout my tenure year. So for the first time, I'm just looking at, a couple of new folks that either joined my team or, the sales team. And I'm like, yo, it's like a good six of us here. And I open up a Teams chat and I curated an outing while we were in Dallas. I'm like, after our political dinner, after the team building, after the meetings, I'm actually going to treat everybody to a beverage. After when everybody goes to back to the hotel, just for something for us to have. And I felt first off not guilty about it because I wasn't using my corporate Amex, but also my wife, when she goes to her academic conferences, sometimes like they have these things that are curated just for them that's called like Black and Brown. And these are some of the top, folks in academia in the country and sometimes internationally that are there. And I'm like, I should feel unapologetic by being able to create a space just for us to be able, not only just to be us, but just to, discuss how grateful we are of the diversity that the company has gone to. But and I did that. And I felt so good about it, but it's so funny because to your point, do you know that my boss came into that restaurant and not only was sat next to our table, but thought it was appropriate for her to bring like one of the only Asians and was like, I brought tea with us, and I'm like, you weren't invited. And so for you to bring a model minority to the same restaurant, and the only reason you even knew about this outing is because I had to decline another happy hour after situation that, you were absolutely aggressive with trying to get me to. And I'm just like, how tone deaf. And everyone was at the table and they was asking, it was like, should we ask them to just, move their tables? Or I said, absolutely not. I said, absolutely not. I said, they are here. And because who I am, I said, I'm actually going to tell our bartender that I'm going to pay for their first round of drinks. But we are absolutely not congregating. Their table will be separated and we will continue to catch the vibe that we were prior to them coming here because this was very intentional. And this is not an all lives matter gathering. Um, so like, just feeling more confident in not only initiating that, but also just like I said, showing up as my authentic self and being confident that I know my shit and I have been in hospitality my entire adult life, and that no matter how it is that I dress and what it is that my jewelry looks like or my hair, that I'm still the most, if not the most, and smartest and competent person in the room.
And you're there for a reason. I love that. Absolutely love that. Oh, and I just want to make a side note. None of this conversation, none of your audio will be included in the recording. So I want you to know that. I won't do that. It's going to get edited out. Okay. So pattern number 3, the productivity tax. Believing your worth is tied to your output. Feeling behind the moment you sit still. I had to have this conversation with my sister, who just had a baby, not even, my niece is maybe 6 weeks. And she was saying, she's like, I feel so weird, sitting down. And I said, girl, sit your ass down. Like, that literally goes all the way back to how we got to this country, that constant need to always be busy to avoid being called lazy. It's a psychological thing that consistently gets passed down, and it has a time and a place. But the belief that your rest has to be earned, you're owed rest, not earned, right? You are treating your body like a machine to prove things to people, or you think you're proving something to yourself, but what you're really doing is performing, right? You're constantly going to prove that you're not lazy, because that's all it all links back to is laziness, and we don't feel deserving of rest. And it's also the grind culture, and I again am a victim of that. I have been a victim of that. This is the slowest year I've had in 8 years, right? And if part of it was the universe forcing it on me, like, yeah, nah, you're going to have a seat. I'm usually on a flight every 2 weeks, and I have a 9-year-old that I'm a solo parent to. This has been the slowest year. Like, normally my year is packed all the way up until June, July by now. And I mean, like, flight after flight, event after event, this after this. I'm chilling. I have like 2 or 3 events. And, I'm flying out on Friday. I have, but I feel so rested in my spirit, and I don't feel lazy. I don't feel like, for a little while, I was kind of fidgety, like, oh, because I kind of rested a lot of December too. And I was just like, I should be doing something. And it's like, no, you shouldn't. Sit down and chill. Like, it's okay to not be doing something. And we constantly push ourselves to feel like that. And it comes with a cost, right? You lose the ability to feel presence with the people you love, with yourself, with the world. You're always living in another time and not in your body, like right now. And one of the most amazing things that I have found from parenting is seeing the world through a child's eyes is my daughter gets so excited about everything, nature, all of that kind of stuff. And now I see myself when I go on walks, I'm like, oh my God, look at that pretty flower when I would have never even noticed it before. But it brings me joy. Like, and you don't even realize that looking at a flower brings you joy. And so, but I'm not able to be present with her to even understand that. I wouldn't be able to receive that and also apply it to myself in my alone time. The presence of yourself, the presence of the people you love. And so one of the things that I started doing is a quote unquote no output hour, right? 60 minutes, and you ain't got to do nothing. It is hard. You know, the first couple of times you're like, wait, what? No cleaning, no emails, nothing educational, no ROI, just existing. When is the last time that you just existed? When is the last time that you taught your nervous system that you are worthy, even when you're quote unquote being lazy or useless? I would love to hear that. When is the last time you just existed?
Mm, I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty rare, especially for an entire hour.
Yeah.
I
I
did the
feel
same
like
thing.
I don't know, like it's I get that like syndrome of feeling like I'm not doing as much as the next person. So it's like I have to like force myself to do things. So even like on a Sunday, Sunday's supposed to be like a day of rest. Like you don't do anything. But then my buddy, like he'll be like, "Man, you cram a lot of physical activity into one day." And my other friends will be like, "Brandon, you just need to sit down somewhere." And I'm like, "I can't sit down. There's too much to do, you know?" And I was like, now I'm trying to get into the habit of like living in the moment instead of like thinking about what I have to do next. And it's been helping out a lot, like just taking time to enjoy a moment of peace. And I think, yeah, I might start incorporating that once a week,
Yeah.
one day or, a couple hours, just don't do anything.
Nothing. Exist. What you don't know what you feel like existing. You don't know what your own existence feels like.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Anybody else?
Yeah, sometimes like it's like a guilt to your point, like because especially, like I said, just being back in corporate and then having all these and wine goals, right? And then sometimes you think about your to-do list or the things that you want to manifest for yourself, and you sometimes it gets overwhelming just thinking about it to the point that you aren't productive and then you feel guilty that you haven't poured into this thing that you have this passion about, right? And then, if you think about sometimes the work week isn't as productive as you wanted it to be, not that anybody else is on your ass, but things that you want to do. And then you feel like, okay, maybe I'll log in a couple hours on Sunday. And then sometimes I just have to sit down and be like, I'm sure that not only are my colleagues not doing anything, but my boss isn't doing anything, and that shit will be there in the morning. And the more weekends that I've done that, and then, just having, meditating that Monday morning and just starting my day saying today is going to be a great day. And then I don't feel behind. I actually feel, and I feel so grateful that I did allocate rest for time that I felt guilty that I didn't open my laptop, whether it be my personal one or my work one. And I'd be, I feel I'd be like, yeah, like I'm happy you took that nap, or I'm happy binge watched that show, or and I end up not having any regrets because to your point, like your body reminds you how much rest that you need. And sometime in the back of my head, like it's the saying, like, you can't cheat the hustle. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you're not, even if it's a small action, if you're not allocating time towards certain things, then obviously you're not going to get a return on investment. But like I said, you only get one body. And I've been more unapologetic about that nap time than I've ever been in my life.
Listen, rest is a birthright. And once you I would say you teach people how to treat you. You're constantly treating your nervous system how to treat you. You can't manifest from a disruptive nervous system. You cannot, because your subconscious is going to know. Your mouth can say whatever it wants. Your subconscious knows. And if you're exhausted subconsciously, but you're telling yourself you got to get these things done, you're telling the universe, you're telling your body, you're telling yourself subconsciously, I don't actually deserve rest. And if I do get these things that I'm trying to manifest, I'm not going to enjoy them. So those are just things to, consider. The next one is the peacekeeper's debt. Maintaining external harmony by creating an internal war, saying yes when your body says no. I've gotten so good at this. People don't like me because those are complete sins as far as I'm concerned. Nah, I'm good. No, thank you. I'm like, but again, it's very easy for us to fall into the pattern of um wanting people to like us, right? We're humans, and that is how we are cultivated. We want people to like us. We all seek relationships, right? Some of us are not just happy with one person liking us, but when you have all these other people liking you and you don't like yourself, again, you're telling your body and your subconscious and all everything that's around you and the God that lives in you, the divinity that lives in you that's trying to manifest, you're telling it you don't like it. You think about that, you're telling God that you don't like whatever you call him, her, they, whatever, because if you're a physical manifestation of God, right? And you are constantly warring with yourself and giving yourself these signs and these signals that you don't actually like yourself enough to be at peace because you're more concerned about the peace of these people. You like these people more than you like you. And if you don't like you don't like the God in you. And if you believe in God, then how are all of these things triangulating, right? And so again, the cost is you may be physically present but emotionally absent. You have silent walls and resentment between you and the people you love because you're tired of saying yes when you don't want to. And honestly, it's not their fault. You train them that way. And if you make a choice, I always tell my daughter, you make a choice, you can make another one. You know, um, but honesty is the best thing. And again, all roads lead back to authenticity. You don't have to make an excuse. You don't have to lie. Don't lie to yourself and don't lie to them. Say, people who love you will honor your capacity. That should never be a fear. And anybody who doesn't want to honor your capacity probably shouldn't have that much access to you. And so some people will be disappointed, and especially in the beginning, but the people who love you will honor that. They probably be proud of you, for taking and reclaiming that part of yourself, because that's a really big thing. And a lot of us do that, and it's really hard to unlearn, and it's very scary because you don't like conflict. You don't want people to dislike you. You don't want to disappoint anybody. But you're okay with doing all of those things to yourself. And that is where the issue has to stop. Anybody want to speak on that?
Yes, I'll say that I lived a lot of years being a people pleaser. And I definitely had to tell my this. I had to say, Pre, if you don't want to go here, if you don't feel comfortable, and me being somebody who just seemed nice, people will try to get you to do things. Like you were saying, they'll get used to you being a certain way. And I've had to tell myself, especially in my adult years, you got to be okay with putting your foot down. You got to be okay with people not liking your response because it can't always be yes. Because you'll get in some pretty bad situations by telling everybody yes. And that goes back to when I was saying, you can't shrink yourself. You have to be like, I'm not feeling this. I don't want no parts of this. I don't want to go here. And my mom used to tell me when I was younger, to not be lying. Like, why am I lying to people? Why be afraid of people? And it took me a long time to really take that in, what my mom was telling me. And now as an adult, I think, my mom was right. I don't have to lie. Like, I don't have to say, give an excuse to why I don't want to do something. It's just I don't want to. No, I don't want to go. We don't need to come up with a lie. How can I tell them that no, just I don't want to. No. So that this was definitely a real one for me, because that people pleasing, and I'm still working on it. I still feel myself, especially with friends, not really with strangers or people I don't really like anymore. Friends, sometimes, it's hard not to do that with friends, but you got to not be a people pleaser. Something I'm really trying to step away from.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
Yeah,
definitely
it
hard.
is. It is.
It's a journey. Since
Mhm.
we all have our journeys in different ways. And so give yourself grace. And you make a choice, you can always make another one. If you say yes, that can always turn into a no. It doesn't have to stay a yes either.
Mhm. I agree.
I've definitely been okay with changing my mind lately.
So
Because,
it's a
yeah,
thing. Yeah, no.
because, especially just being a Cancer and an empath, and just, and just really like the people that I love them to the
Mhm.
core, you know what I mean? And not only do you not want to be a disappointment, but you also want the people you love to be comfortable, and you want to come through for them. And you also just want to be, a person of your word. But then also, to your point, when you do not have the mental, emotional, or physical capacity to do certain things, and just being like, no, actually, I want to allocate that weekend just for me and my wife, just to chill. We don't want to buy flying in. I ain't trying to cook for nobody. I ain't trying to, and then, just relocating to Michigan as well. Most, moves that you make that's coming through for other people really do consist of a flight, right? So, um, yeah, like sheesh, yeah, but I have mastered it now, and it feels so good.
I love that.
It feels so good.
It's all of these things feel good because you're reclaiming yourself, right? And that's all we're all trying to do once we become our own decision makers is kind of reclaim the parts of ourselves that the world has stripped away, reclaim the voices in our head as our own and not our parents or our school teachers. Like all of that is they're just reclamations over and over again. And they feel good because they belong to you. Like little pieces of a puzzle have been strattered all over the place. And every time you take one back, you become more and more whole. And the last one is the legacy grind, sacrificing your current nervous system for a future version of yourself that never seems to arrive. You tell yourself you're doing this, you're going this hard for community, you're going this hard because, you're building this for your family, you're going this hard, and you're constantly sacrificing your health, your mental health, your emotional health, um, for hypotheticals, right? And there's a difference between, I think, hypotheticals and goals. There's a way to achieve your goals in a healthy way that is not this grind culture um, and burnout. And so when we talk about the legacy, like I said before, you're trying to manifest all of these things without resting, without being honest with yourself, without treating yourself right. And then when you do get them, you're not going to be healthy enough to enjoy them. And I don't mean healthy like you can't walk. Sometimes it's healthy like mentally. You're mentally burnt out. You're not even there. Or you're emotionally burnt out. You're not there. Um, and I also think that we kind of fall into this habit of teaching the next generation that success equals suffering, right? And I try to be very careful about that with my daughter and her watching me. And she knows that I'm an entrepreneur and she knows, I work really hard. And sometimes I work from the time I drop her off until 11:30 midnight. And she sees that. And I also want her to see the sides of me where I am taking care of myself. I am doing things for myself. I change my plans. If she has a school thing going on, she's never going to hear from me that mommy can't make it because she's working. Like, that's not going to happen. I change flights, okay, to be there for my child. Like, she's not going to ever, I won't say ever because I can't control everything, but if I can make it happen, if I'm gonna cut this off, I'm gonna cut this off because it's gonna be you before her. Trust me. But I need to also teach her that, as she grows up and if she's a woman, because we get pulled so many different ways. And if she becomes a mother, I want her to understand like the most important thing in her life is her children. Yes, you're working for them, right, to provide a life and all these other things. But I don't ever want my daughter to look at me and like, dang, my mom worked so hard, all my life. I want her to look at me and be like, man, my mom had a good life. She made sure I had a good life. And, that means being well-rounded. And so part of unlearning that is the legacy is a feeling, not a result. Like shift the definition of what you're considering a legacy. Like I'm saying with my daughter, like the legacy that I was taught was you work, 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 work until you die, basically, right? It's never, you sacrifice everything. You don't go on vacation. You don't stop. You don't, I can't be there because I have to work. My legacy for her is going to be you work, you do it right as to the best of your ability, you do the best that you can, and you enjoy yourself, right? You take those times, you put what's important ahead of any of the rest of that stuff. Because at the end of the day, work is always going to be there. Always. Um, and if your legacy was ease and sovereignty, um, what would you do differently today? Right? That's a question, an internal question. If your legacy was ease and sovereignty, what would you do differently today? And would you still be trudging towards this imaginary finish line, or would you, kind of stand still a little bit more, to smell the incense a little bit more? I like incense, obviously. Um, what does that look like for you?
Uh, I think I like struggle between like wanting to meet certain goals because I know what I want my life to end up looking like. I want to break certain curses, like generational curses of divorce, like in my family, or break like or build generational wealth for my future generations that come after me. But it's like I was like trying to like figure out how to even do that. And so sometimes I would get into like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to, uh, start this kind of business or whatever. But some of those things will feel very forceful.
Mhm.
And I think I've gotten to a state where right now I'm just doing things that feel easy to me instead of trying to force an outcome, instead of trying to force like, oh, I'll spend 15 like five like a year or 2 years learning uh how to code this crazy app or whatever, and it's gonna take me so long to finish. By the time I finish it, somebody else will probably made one, you know? And instead of doing something like that, or like just trying to do other things that would come easier to me and exploring those avenues fully. Um, so that's where I'm at. Like I'm definitely chasing ease instead of like trying to force
Yeah.
my way through.
Does it feel better?
Much better. Much better for sure. A lot less stress.
Mhm. Anybody else?
Have you guys ever heard of Abraham Hicks?
Hmm.
Let me tell you something about me and Abraham. We got a thing going on, okay? I listen to Abraham Hicks. Actually, right after I meditate in the morning, I listen
Mm.
to the 15-minute, I get dressed or shower to the 15-minute clips of Abraham Hicks.
Oh, okay.
And and I became familiar with her during the pandemic as well. Um, and she really taught me that gravitating towards things that feels good that brings you joy will get you to your divine self to be able to manifest anything that you would ever want.
Like that.
You know what I mean? And, and she's so objective when it comes to no matter what your faith is, right? Like when she even speaks of any higher power, she refers to it as source. You know what I mean? And, just really being in a constant state of gratitude. I can say without any stress on my heart, I literally have been able to manifest everything that I have ever desired, no matter what it is that's on my to-do list or on my checklist that I would want for the next year, next 5 years, next 10 years of my life. I can look back and say, I am exactly where I prayed to be 5 years ago or 2 years ago without having to feel like I've overly exhausted myself in order to get here. And sometimes, I feel like I be sounding cheesy when when I be talking to friends and family about really being in that headspace where you are seeking joy, and first, before feeling like you have to have this struggle mentality in order to get things that you want, or, this hustle and bustle in order to be able to manifest things. And like I said, like anything that makes my spirit feel unsettled, I leave it right there. I leave it right there. I mean, like it is just absolutely wild. Like even, with my car, like the past like year or so, and I'm like, man, like when I had gotten to the cars, I had gotten to, I had somebody T-boned me when I was living in Georgia and totaled my Optima, my Kia. And I end up getting into an Audi A4. And I'm like, oh my God, like this white Audi has been on my vision board for like 3 years. I'm like, oh, I'm an Audi now, you feel me? But it was a 2017, which was cool, still was fully loaded and it was a nice vehicle or whatever. But I knew that I'm like, I've always had a car note my entire adult life. I never want any maintenance issues, and I definitely never want to pay for nothing for no luxury car. And it's the first time that I'm financing something that's not leased. So I'm like, then you just have that anxiety. So I'm like, it's ride good, but I know it could be riding better. And they never getting 5Gs out of me at this maintenance thing. And so nonetheless, I'm parking and word is born, it's like smoke coming out of the hood of my car. And I'm just like, I know this ain't no, and it's not no lights on the dash. But I'm like, there's smoke coming out of my vehicle when I park. So it happened 2 more times. And I said, you know what? When I tell you I went on Carvana and ordered a car like DoorDash, and I and when it was on a Sunday morning, by Tuesday, I had an Audi Q5 pulling up to my house in a way that I was just, me and my wife trying to start a family and stuff. And I'm like, I really want an SUV. I really just don't want to make no, decisions just going to the dealership because I'm used to being in a new vehicle. You just kind of almost have like this survivor skill in some ways when you just are buying material things, especially in this climate that we're in, in this country. And I'm just like, man, but I was like, I'm like, one thing for sure and two for certain, I'm not gonna be walking, and I'm not gonna be exhausting my cash flow at no Audi dealership to keep this vehicle on the road. And when I tell you I have found that Q5, I didn't have to pay for shipping or no money down. You hear me? I got the peanut butter seats that I wanted. And I was just so happy about life. And I think my car note went up maybe like another $50 a month. But I was just so grateful because not only even was I wasn't in the market to buy a vehicle, but I manifested something that I wanted. And it didn't cause me any anxiety when I made the decision to pursue it. And that's just, like I said, it's a material thing, but it's just one thing that I can just use as an example that I didn't think too much about it. And I was able to use the other car as a trade, and they picked that bad boy up and put it on the same truck that they delivered the other one on. And that's just how things have just been falling in line in divine order. Just every single year that I look back on things that I've prayed for. You know what I mean?
And that's important to recognize that and be grateful for this, because grateful begets more gratefulness, right? Like that's how you manifest, from a place of gratefulness. Um, so I am, like I said, we're doing a sovereign audit, And these are just prompts that you really can take with you. What is one responsibility that I'm carrying and it isn't mine to solve, right? Um, or to return, like what part of my personality have I quieted down to stay professional or palatable, right? Um, what is one small way I can choose alignment over approval this week, right? How you stay in alignment with yourself over the people pleasing. It's just small things. Nothing was meant to be solved in this 1 hour. These are all just tools and things for you to think about as you continue on. Because awareness, now that it's in your subconscious, is going to keep coming up now, like, oh, you're doing it. Um, and so a part of that is, and Talika knows this, part of my practice is I have this thing where I'm like your bestie in your head. And so I'm really good at setting people straight, like, nah, cut that shit out. Like, stop now. And so I started a Patreon, and this is not something that I am selling to you. I'm giving you optional tools. I did start a Patreon, and it's not wellness speak in the sense of, hey, you need da da da. It's more fire. There are 5 different sets of voice notes that you can choose from. One is a reset that helps you sleep, and so it has the frequencies for sleep and the affirmations that repeat while you sleep to feed your self-conscious. There are fire mantras, kind of like, and if you wanted to see an example of a fire mantra, you can look on my Instagram. I posted it, on Sunday, but kind of just having conversations about like, are you shrinking right now? Or, things that you had a post meeting and you need to get out of your head about it, or, kind of ways to release. And then there's also another frequency for their diurnal frequencies just for healing, right? And they're lower voiced frequencies, and my voice, my tone is a lot soother, almost like ASMR. Um, and just different things to kind of again help you come back to yourself and all of that. Um, it's again called it's a Patreon. It's called Reset Mantras. Um, that I have. You can get them one track for $3, or you get a whole archive for $10. It's not trying to. I genuinely just want people to heal, and so thank you so much. Um, was this helpful at all? I'm going to stop recording.